pastor, mentor, counselor, friend. What can I call you today?
Whatever, all of the above. All of the above. I'm everybody today. You're going to get a little bit of everybody today.
I love it. I love it. We're here.
Yeah.
Like, finally. We are here. This almost feels like a destination. Like we've arrived here after a long journey. There's so much to talk about. You know, I know we have the book about grief, and we're going to talk about ministry and your dad and just legacy and all of those things. But why now? Why do you feel like you're ready to talk about things now?
Now I feel more solid. There has been a lot going on really quickly. I always describe it as I had to become the pilot mid-air. Having to come to pilot mid-air, I didn't have enough time there was so much happening at one time that you just got to have moving parts.
Yeah.
And then I finally got to a place where I feel solid enough to speak my truth and have it being coming from my heart, because there have been a lot of assumptions, whether I get them or I hear them or assume them. And I just needed to be solid enough in me to say, okay, I'm ready enough to not be shaken by the opinions of others.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think timing is everything.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible speaks about seasons and time, and it's so important to share your heart in your space when it's time.
When it's time.
Right. And so here we are.
We're going to do our best to keep it together today. We're going to try.
Do our best. Now, why don't you just catch people up to how we arrived here? Because it's been a journey.
It's been a journey. Yeah. And I appreciate you being along for the ride.
Hey, I'm always. So catch everyone up to how we got here.
Okay, so on November the 8th, 2021, I like to say my favorite superhero traded his cape in for a crown. Yeah. So my dad made his transition from earth to heaven November 28th, 2021. It was actually at 4:05 p.m.
Wow.
For the longest, I did not know how I knew the time, but we'll be able to talk about how I remember walking in at the point of time of them calling the death. And for so long, I did not know why I knew that time, but at 4:05 p.m. And that led us to be here. So that happened on November the 8th. We had his homegoing celebration on November the 20th. November the 21st, I preached the service because I took over the ministry alongside my mother. And this is where we've been. This is life now. This is life now. Wild that this is life now.
Yeah. And so here we have so many layers because you're a PK kid, and that has its own level of layers, right? I'm one, so we get each other, right? But then to be kind of groomed and to be preparing for the position, but you still had to be like in shock,
right,
to step into it. Did you feel ready?
I did. The reason I feel ready because I remember sitting in a therapy session, and the therapist was like, "You don't seem like," she said, "you seem like you're okay with Bishop Washington, but you haven't let go of your father."
Absolutely.
And I was like trying to figure out, okay, well, how do you let go of your father? And I told her, I knew everything to do in Bishop Washington's absence. I know how to, I've been trained to know what to do if Bishop Washington is not there. I know how to run the ministry. I know how to set the program. I know how to get the leaders because I have been the assistant pastor. So it was easy for me to step into the role of being the assistant pastor and now being in charge because I had been trained my entire life mostly to be in the absence of my father, the minister, right? What he didn't train me to do is how to do it, have an absence of my father. So that's the space that has been a little more learning of the journey. So for me, knowing what to do in the absence of the bishop, the pastor, I knew how to do that. Learning what to do in the absence of the father was the new one. So walking into the ministry space wasn't hard at all. And the place where my dad and I connected the most was ministry. That was our thing. And so I feel the most connected to him when I'm in my ministry moment because that's our moment together. And it may seem like a strain for other people because that was our moment, because that's the main thing that I was trained to do. Ministry was not the hard part.
Right.
Doing ministry was not the hard part at all.
Really?
It was not.
So I just have to make it more personal.
Mhm.
Like, in my mind, I'm imagining standing up before the people and about to break down. In the first few Sundays you had to minister, you did not have.
I didn't have.
Are we dealing with a superwoman now? Like, you did not have like a like. Let me catch it.
No, no, at all.
What?
Okay, so when we get to November, my dad actually, what he had was a stroke. So let's cut the myth that there was COVID. He did not. He did not die of COVID.
Right.
So he had a stroke. He had a major stroke. Right. This happened in October.
Oh wow.
Actually, so in October, I believe it was around the 12th or the 14th. I was already standing in the place of had been ministering for him and taking over Sunday service, filling the gap the entire time of while he was actually in the hospital. So it was he was supposed to be able to come home. So nothing in me says, keep running how we're doing. We have things in place. We got a calendar. We got the schedule. Keep going. But there are times where when you're spiritual and you really trust God and you really have a connection with God, there is nothing that catches God by surprise.
I agree.
So if you allow him to, I already had this unction, like along the way, God was already preparing me. So there were some things that I already had insight on the possibility of before I even walked into the space. And like at the beginning of the year, my dad and I, we always sit down and we map out the calendar for the year, and we schedule all of the, I function by sermon series. He's a little bit of old school. So I already know by the time we get into it, what we're doing, what we're planning for the whole year. While he was sitting in the hospital bed, we were planning services. Okay, I need you to do this. We got to make sure we finish this, and we do this. So by the time November came, all I was really doing was finishing the task that he had already laid out.
Okay, so let me say this. Because you were finishing the task that he laid out, did you find yourself at any point on an autopilot where I'm doing it, but I'm not here?
No, and let me tell you why.
What?
I was doing it and was not here because of a conversation that you and I had already been having in 2018, where you were preparing me of how to sit in my feelings.
Oh, yeah.
So because like all things work together, it all made the wildest of sense, right?
Wow.
So because I was already being prepped to sit in my feelings, I was already being prepped to honor how I feel in moments and take my time and my space and give myself the space and the grace, because I had already been learning how to do that 2018. When 2021 happened, I gave myself the space.
Good. Yeah.
Like coming to ministry is an assignment, but your assignment has an ending, right? So when my assignment of doing the ministry portion ended, then I could sit as Domonique, as the woman or the daughter, and just have my feelings or my emotions.
Amen.
So because, I am the CEO of compartmentalizing.
Yes, she is. She has the crown.
I have the crown, right? So because I'm able to compartmentalize, I can compartmentalize. I have to do my ministry assignment. I have to be the daughter. I have to feel. I have to look after my mother, check over, because I can do all these spaces. But then we had already been talking about when I get home, how to unpack.
That's right.
And go through the spaces of feeling how I felt in those moments and making mental notes, but also making notes in my phone to remind myself I felt this, so I remember this. So because I had already been working, it just was really, I thank God that journey had begun then, because I really probably would have been a mess had it not.
Yeah.
Had it not, it would have been a different story.
Well, while we're here talking about feelings and compartmentalizing, I think it's really important because a lot of CEOs, a lot of bosses, a lot of people who wear the cape will watch this, right? And they say, how do you do that? When I do therapy with people, I talk to a lot of people who drown their feelings in alcohol, the saints and the sinners, and in other dysfunctional ways, because they're not taking the moment to just, it's okay to lay on the floor and give it back, like to lay out. It's okay. So how would you encourage somebody to feel their feelings?
Listen, the first thing that that was hard for me. That we've been working on that for a while, okay?
Yeah,
we've been working on that for a while. But I had to first, I think before you and I began the journey about 2018, 2019, about sitting in my feelings, I remember having a conversation with my mom about 2017. And she came to me and she said, did you know that it's okay to not be okay? Mm-hmm. And I said, no. She said, well, she apologized to me if there was any part that she played in me feeling like my emotions would diminish my spirit or my personality or make me weak. And my mom actually, you know, she in tune, her and the Holy Spirit tight like that. So for me, it felt at random, but she called me out of the blue and was like, it's okay to not be okay.
Okay. See, everything you say, I want to stop and put a pin.
Yeah.
Because as PK children or children of big exec companies, sometimes we didn't have the luxury to fall apart.
No,
you really didn't.
You didn't.
You had to be the standard. You had to be the example.
Yeah, and even if it wasn't told to you that you had to be,
it was
right. It was perception that you had to be.
Yeah.
And in watching, being so close knit with my dad, because you know, I was. Look, if he went on an assignment, like if we went to there was a family having a domestic situation, then my responsibility was to go and watch after the kids.
Yeah.
I went with him. I was still there.
Right,
Somebody taking their last breath. I remember going with him to the hospital. He had me to go with him, and he said, "This is what happens. This is what I have to do. You be with the family." So I had been in training with him this whole time. So in watching him, even without them ever telling me that this is what I thought, because I saw him fall, I saw him hold it all together. But the beautiful thing about my daddy is that he was a crier. So I saw, wait, you can have these emotions, but the woman in me, the alpha of that society and even church tells you you have to be, well, if I'm a woman and I have these emotions, then it's seen as different. A weakness. Right. So there are some things that we pick up just by perceiving how you're supposed to be in the environments and spaces. But it was such a beautiful thing that at the right time, my mom called and apologized. I don't know if I ever said it, if I ever did it, but it's okay to not be okay. And when I tell you, it was like a balloon that just let the air out, and I was like, oh, I can feel things, and it's not going to make me small. It's not going to. So the first thing that you have to do is know it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
And that sent me on a journey, because you know me, on a journey to study emotions.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so emotions are God-given? Wait, so I can cry, I can feel, I can be angry. I am allowed to do this. Yeah. And that restructured me to be able to be like, it's okay to have these emotions. Yeah. But the first thing is to acknowledge that it's okay to have them. Then secondly, you got to figure out which ones you have. So for me, I have an emotion wheel in my phone right now, because when they tell us what we know, anger and we know joy, right? And so when you know anger and joy, what I had to find is, what's my language? Yeah. Because I'm not angry. So what is it? Oh, anger has all of these other emotions, right? So now I have to pinpoint what's my true nature? What do I really feel? And that's really the way my brain operates and how I
know that.
You know this, right? So I have an emotion wheel, legit. It's on my phone. So I can find out, what am I really feeling? Right? What is it that I'm feeling? And the way I find out what I'm feeling is I go back to the moment and I acknowledge, wait, that was something.
Yeah.
And even if I have to hold that thought, hey, hold that thought, because there was something.
Yeah.
You said something, you did something. So I think without having to acknowledge that prior to this moment, it really allowed me to have the moments and realize that they're just moments.
Yeah, they're moments. But okay, I got to put a pin here. I knew there was going to be a lot of pins. I have to put a pin here. I love that you're saying I had to stop and say, what am I feeling?
What am I feeling?
So this is the tip that we're giving people.
Right.
That is a tool and a technique. You say, what am I feeling? When you feel it come up, because let me tell you something about that anger, which I'm sure we all know. Anger, a lot of things feel like anger, but it isn't
not anger.
It's disappointment.
It's disappointment.
It's sadness. It's loneliness. And sometimes for people, anger is that default. It's the big trash can of, everything kind of falls in. So now when I meet people who are angry, I'm like,
what is it really?
What is it really?
And so that's the part where you have to sit and say, what is it really? Because one thing about your emotions, I can't define them for you.
That's right.
I can't take them away from you, but I also can't define them for you. So you have to be willing to sit within yourself and say, well, what is it?
What is this? Yeah.
And then the way you find out what it is that you have to really take yourself, you got to get into a quiet space. And you got to sit with yourself, which a lot of people don't, because we get so used to depending on other people to give their opinion and to tell us what we are.
We're calling our BFFs in 5 seconds.
So tell me if I'm crazy, right?
Right.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this.
Absolutely.
Before you even take the time to process for yourself. And so I had to learn how, well, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And then not be afraid to voice it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, when it comes to my dad, listen, 2020, 2021, we had our roads because he was so used to me not being vocal. He was so used to me not being vocal. I was it's okay. I would naturally internalize it, keep my opinions to myself. If I don't feel heard, I'm going to shut down. But when I was learning how to use my voice, we bumped heads because he wasn't used to me having a voice because I wasn't the kid that had the voice.
That's right.
I'm going to roll with it and I'm going to be good. Even if I'm not, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be quiet. So when he had to try to learn my voice and have me to share how I feel, we bumped heads because to him, old school, it seemed disrespectful, but it's really not. You're just not used to me having my opinion or having an emotion. You don't care about that? Yes, I do. Since when you cared? I've always cared.
I've always cared.
I just never say it.
But I got to put a pin here because we're talking about feelings, and now we're speaking to the person or the persons that they need to find their voice, and they need to understand why having their voice is important in ministry, in grief, in all of it. So what would you say to them? Why is finding your voice and saying how you feel, why is that even important?
It's so important because if you don't find your voice, somebody else will give you theirs.
Yes.
And you will walk around not knowing your truth because you've been standing in the truth of somebody else for so long. Then you will, as believers, you will find yourself not even knowing the voice of God for yourself and being able to trust your own wisdom. But when you're dealing with grief and when you're dealing with real life, there are a lot of times where the crowd is not present.
That's right.
So what do you do when there is no access to the crowd to tell you how to feel, to tell you who you are, to tell you how you should handle things if you haven't even learned your own voice?
Right.
So you have to learn how to speak up for yourself, how to know where you feel, so that when somebody else is giving you their opinion, you know not to hold on to that because that's not your truth.
That's right.
But if you don't know your voice, you also don't know your truth.
Right. And you don't know yourself.
Or yourself.
You really
So now you're just being whoever they say you're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And that is why, let me tell you this, in COVID, was that 2019, 2020? I remember in COVID having to watch people grieve, right? Because they were having to watch loved ones die via iPads.
Yeah.
And I watched so many believers grieve and watch them basically lose their mind on social media.
Yeah,
and they're crying out, and it's the hardest space to be.
Yeah.
I remember riding in the car with my best friend, and I said this out loud in 2020. Whenever it is my time for one of my parents to leave this earth, God, let me grieve well. I said this in 2020.
Really?
I said this in 2020.
He heard you.
Not knowing.
Oh my God.
I had no idea that this would happen in 21, right?
Wow.
But this was my desire because everything I knew about grief is that believers, saints, Christians, solid people, God can handle everything else but grief.
I got you.
This is what I saw.
Right.
This is what I know because everybody is good until a parent dies, until the grandmother dies, until this. So it looked like, to me, on the outside looking in, well, God is good until grief comes.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to say, but if that's not true, God, I'll be the vessel to be the example to what is true about you concerning grief.
Right.
I said this out loud in 2020.
Oh my God.
I kid you not.
Oh
Those are my exact words.
Wow.
So when people see me, seems like I'm grieving well, that's really the journey that I told God.
Absolutely.
And a prayer that he answered.
Okay. So now let me go to the other side of this.
Okay.
Have you been judged? Do people think because you present so neat, clean, organized, well, you're not falling apart on social media?
Oh, of course.
Do they think she's not grieving?
Oh, yes.
Did you get that?
Oh, I got DMs. I got prayers. I got prophecies. I have actual standing in my face and telling me, you don't have to be strong, right? And people just automatically, not asking.
Yeah.
But just automatically assuming that you're pretending and you don't have to be strong for everybody.
Right.
And they may have meant well. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they meant well. But the thing about it is, ask me how I'm doing it before you assume that I'm not. Because if you look at grief works with your natural personality.
You're right. Absolutely.
My natural personality, naturally, before death, y'all don't know my business. I'm not putting it all on social media.
That's right.
I'm not having my phone up and I'm crying.
Right.
So if grief goes along with how you are naturally, you wouldn't see this from me on a regular day.
That's right.
So to assume that because I'm not doing it to the standard that looks perceivable to man or to the culture, to assume that I'm not doing it properly, who told you I was wrong?
Yeah.
Who told you that in order to grieve, it has to be out
and
I got them in their face and put it on display for you? Who told you? Who made that the truth?
Right.
And so I made the determination that if grief goes along with my natural personality, because remember, you and I talked, I thought I was wrong because of what I had already perceived to be true.
That's right.
You know, I'm looking at my brother and my sister, they're crying every day, and I'm not. And I remember coming to you like, hey, am I crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you was like, where did you get that? Because everybody says I'm supposed to be, if I'm really grieving, then I'm supposed to show the world.
Yeah.
And then I went back to define grief is just sorrow.
It's your way.
It's your way, but it's a sorrow.
Right.
So you can't tell me I'm not in sorrow because you don't approve of how I present my sorrow.
Right. And so we're freeing somebody.
Yeah.
Because they may not be the crier or the crier out loud or the cry for attention or whatever. And so they're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And we're here to tell you just in your way.
In your way, at your time, at your space.
Right.
And so what I do is I've never cut off my grief.
That's right.
Now, I'm never going to prop up the phone for y'all to see it. That's just
it's not your business.
That's just not me.
Right.
But I'm never going to cut off my grief.
Right.
So if I cry, I'm going to cry.
Right.
If I'm sad, I'm going to be sad.
Yeah.
And I'm always, what I said in this moment, even at the hospital, talking to my siblings, even my mom, I said, we're going to always be honest about how we feel.
That's right.
So if you ever took the time to ask me how my day is, you may ask me on a day where it's good. But if it's not good, you know I'm going to tell you, it's not good today.
It's not today. Right.
Today is not the day.
It's not.
I need a moment. I need to be silent. I need my space.
Right.
And there are times because grief comes in waves.
Yes, it does.
It's an ebb and flow. And so just because I have grief, which means sorrow, that doesn't mean it has to be consistently expressed in a certain way.
That's right.
Right? And so grief is just love. It's love because love is there. Then grief is there because it's love that is no longer in the physical realm.
That's
right? But because the love for that person is there and you're thinking about all the spaces that they are not going to be there, grief is going to be coming, but it's not going to be consistently sad. It doesn't have to be consistently sad.
Right.
It doesn't have to be consistently depressed.
Right.
I can have a moment. I'll never forget. We had a member was going into surgery, and the surgery that they were going into just so happened to fall on the 2-year anniversary of my father's death. Right. So in that moment, as pastor and as person, I had to decide, who do I honor in the space? And I made the decision that it was okay to honor the person.
Yeah.
And I called one of the members the ministers, and I said, she's having a surgery. You go by the hospital. I let the family know I do not have the emotional capacity to do that today.
Right.
Because not only was it the anniversary of my father's death, but she was in ICU at the same hospital.
No.
And so me trying to feel obligated to be the pastor in the moment and put on my clothes, I couldn't even breathe.
Yeah.
I said, I can't breathe.
I can't do this.
And so I was honest.
Yeah.
I was honest with her and say, listen, I'm sending someone else to make sure that they're going to pray for you. But today I don't have the space. I cannot physically, mentally, emotionally, I don't have the capacity to be there for you.
I love that.
And I honored the space of the person, because so often the believer thinks that you don't have to honor the person. That's not even biblical.
Right.
The Bible says you love others as you love yourself. So it tells you that yourself is important. And there are times where I have to honor me, but it does not dishonor the position or dishonor God.
But I love the language that you're giving people.
Yeah.
I don't have the emotional or physical. I couldn't do it. And I love you. And I promise I'm going to pray from this space, but I'm sending Evangelist Jane.
Yeah.
She is going to execute where I can't.
Yeah.
I love that because it shows that you can be human, vulnerable, so many different layers. And I hope from our mouth to their ears that somebody hears that language.
Yeah.
You just don't
I didn't have the capacity.
You didn't have the capacity.
Because what happens, especially in my life, I realized for my person, there is only a window of capacity,
yes.
right? Because my life has so many moving parts. I still have a full-time job. I'm still full-time in ministry. I'm still the eldest of my family, my siblings.
Right.
I'm still caring for, you know, my mother and looking after my nieces. I'm still auntie of the universe, right?
Yes.
And then all of this,
auntie.
but then in the part of that, I also have to say, but I am a person and I am a woman.
That's right.
And so the woman only has a certain window of capacity that I have to decide if I want to give to you.
Yeah.
And I make the decision to give to it. Now, there are people, you know, got offended because I did make plans to come with you tomorrow. But when tomorrow came, I didn't want to, or I just wanted to be by myself, or I didn't want to be around people.
I love that.
And because I only have a certain amount of capacity, and I made the choice that I'm going to honor me. And that does not have to be a put down to you, but I'm honest with people to say, listen, I can make plans with you today, but tomorrow it may be different. It might change because grief is different. But before grief, I didn't have that language.
Right.
Grief actually
gave me the language
to be honest, sincerely. Because I would try to be the person that's there for everybody.
Right.
Grief made me look at life differently. It changed me, and it changed me into me a good way.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
Grief made you show up for yourself.
Yes, it did. You know why though? Grief made me show up on myself because I didn't realize that I had an unspoken expectation of how people were going to show up for me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So when it comes to grief, I had an idea in my mind of how others would show up for me in the absence of one of my parents that I never told people. So when they didn't show up for me in that way,
it was
a shock. And I realized, wait. I showed up for people in this space and they didn't show up. And then it let me know, I didn't even know that I had an expectation, but I did know that it wasn't met. And at that moment I say, okay,
so you know, we have to pin here.
Yeah.
We have to put a pin because there's so many people who grieve and so many people who are part of families that give. And I'll share a little story and then I want you to elaborate. My grandma is the matriarch of the family, the pastor of the church, everything. And she had fed families. Do you hear me? Great cook, homemade yeast roll, that woman, right?
Okay.
When she passed away, Pastor Domonique, Easter, she passed away in December. Easter came around. We had to go to a restaurant. Not that we had to, because yes, we can cook.
Right.
But it was just us. We have a small family. There was no I want you to hear me. There was no invitation from any of the families. We fed their kids. No family said, come to our house for Easter. We'll make grandmom's rolls for you. We were at a top of the line restaurant, but there's nothing that compares. So then I get it. You didn't say, we've got to create our own space.
We got to create our own space. And we have to be willing to just acknowledge, because I don't have any ill will towards anyone.
But it's an eye-opener.
It's an eye-opener to say, hold on. Because honestly, you know, the plate stopped before the funeral got there, you know? Like, the check-in stopped.
No more chicken burger.
Look, the check-in stopped, right? And I watched my daddy bend over, backwards, forward, sideways for people who didn't even show up. And I did not want to have any anger towards them.
Right.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to change how we do this. Because at the end of the day, if people have the right to choose themselves, then I have the right to choose me.
Myself. Yeah. I love that.
And I got to give, and I got to be okay with it. But that's not how I was raised to be. Like, because my daddy was a giver.
Because you saw he was a giver.
Like my entire life, when we had nothing, he would give from nothing, right? And I love reading all the testimony about the people that he helped and all these things. But then when you look around and you see, there were people who was apologizing for me for not being at the funeral that I didn't even know were there. At the funeral was like, oh, you weren't there?
Yeah.
So then the list started going, wait, you weren't there?
Yeah.
And so grief also changed how I saw people. It changed how I saw life.
Yeah.
It changed how I desire to do life. Yeah. Because I am forever going to be a giver. That's just my heart is to give. But I'm not going to give more to anyone else that I'm willing to give to myself. And that's the narrative that I wanted to change. But grief taught me that. Yeah. Grief taught me that because I looked out and I was like, wait, you ain't show up? Like, you wasn't there?
You're not going to ever, in any point in your life, give from an empty place.
No.
You are going to always make sure that you are full.
Always.
And that's not selfish.
It's not selfish at all. And so that's why I am able, that's how I can say that I am able, when I'm doing ministry, I am never going to bleed on people. That is the desire that I have. When somebody say, well, why did you go to therapy? I really went to therapy because I wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Like, let's sit through this, let's talk through this. I knew where I was spiritually, but let's walk through these things, because whenever there is something that I need to talk through, because you know me, I might not need to go every week, but when I got the moment, talk me through this.
Help me to get through.
I'm helping me to get through this, so I never have to bleed on people. So I never want to be a space where I'm giving empty. So I'm never giving empty. If I'm giving, I have the space to do it.
Okay, we got a pin right here because I'm thinking of all of my friends are pretty much pastors, and I have watched everything that you're talking about done well and done wrong. I've watched preaching through grief, and it comes out as just anger.
Yeah.
I mean, rebuke,
dogging people out, casting them out, and I can get that, but you do that because you haven't released it before you got before the people.
So can we tell the pastors, the apostles, the leaders, the elders, even the evangelists, if you don't feel safe to process with your bestie or with people at your house, please go and process in the chair, on the couch. Please go to therapy and process.
Yeah, because it's not saying, I talk to God all the time. We actually, grief gave us an even close-knit relationship just in the ministry part, because really in the absence of my father, and then I have, my mother is there, but it brought me closer to God, because all of the people that I'm sure my dad assumed would be in the space to lead and guide me, I got to figure this thing out, right? And so it caused me to lean on God, and I know that's him doing that. So it isolated me, but it isolated me to make sure my voice and my connection comes from him and my glory. So when people say, I know it's nobody but God, God gets the glory out of even my grief, because he and I have the greatest connection, because there were not others that really stepped in and said, oh, you got to do it like this, and you got to do it like that. But I know God set it up that way.
Yeah.
But I had to be sure that when there is times that I need to process, that I put it on the ears of somebody that has the wisdom and that can give me the language, so that when it's time to do my assignment, I'm not abusing the space of my assignment because I did not adhere to needing to unleash the humanity, my carnality that felt a certain way.
Okay, we gotta say, I really want people to understand that, as a leader, you may not lose a spouse or a parent or whatever, but you could go through a divorce. There's so many ways to grieve where if it's not done well, you will bleed on the people, and love yourself enough to say, let me go talk to somebody who I'm not going to see in the grocery store.
Right.
Let me go figure this out in my humanity, so that when I'm standing in the position of being in front of you, I'm coming from a healed place.
I'm coming from a place that I've already released. So I can just give you the word.
I can give you the word.
And not my opinion, and not my abuse of I'm dogging y'all because y'all, not my anger. Not that I was disappointment, but I'm able to give you the solid word. And so having your voice to open it up, but then trusting, you got to have trust, because you got to trust God and trust that God has send you the right others that'll help you along the way. But you got to give that emotion somewhere to go. If not, it's going to show up. It's going to show up.
Come on, Frank. Come on.
It's got to, because one thing about it has to come out.
It has to come out. And I have seen on the negative side, I've seen not dealing with the grief, and now all of a sudden a person is hypersexual.
Right.
Not dealing with the grief, and now the alcohol is your friend. Not dealing with the grief, and even the same, smoking marijuana. Not because you like the feeling, but just you want to forget. You want to
numb out. You want to numb out. You want to escape it. But the best thing you can ever do is face it.
Face it.
And had we not figured out at 25, 6, I forget the year, of how to face heavy emotions during my first heartache, then I would have been figuring it out in the grief.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
But the grief, I actually, because I had figured it out already, how to face the hard things, I didn't mind crying about my father being gone.
Yeah.
Because I had already learned how to cry when something was going to hurt in the breakup. So we have to use the moments in our lives they all are teaching us and prepping us for the big spaces of things. And sometimes when we see God is preparing you to be in rooms, we think about the glory of it.
That's right.
But God is also, if you use it, he's preparing you for the grief of it too. And should you allow it, you can learn from your biggest disappointment how to handle the next disappointment well. He wants you to learn from those spaces. And so I know I learned from those spaces. But this time, I know people were like, right after we made the announcements on November the 9th, I got a DM like, I can't wait till you write a book about it. I went to God, I was like, hey, listen.
Let's talk about this,
Listen, Lord, let's talk about this. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to live it before I learned it to teach other people.
That's right.
And so I had the mind to write a book. Well, I didn't really want to write the book, but I yielded myself over to God. If you want to use this, then you know I'm a surrender to you. But if I can ask of you something, I ask of you to let me live it first. I will get up and be disciplined enough to write down anything that you give me, but let me live it first. Because I know me well enough to know I would have been going through trying to learn to teach somebody else, and I wouldn't have lived my feelings. I wouldn't have lived through, the first time I leave the house and having the panic attack because I'm going, this is my first time leaving the house because I purchased my place, but right after things happened, I moved in with Mom from day one.
Of course.
And I stayed with her for 6 or 7 months. So I went to live in her space. So my first time in that window going into, I think I wanted to go to the movies and get my nails done. Let me go out into the world. Wait, this is real world. Wait, hold on. This is a big deal. And I went to see a movie that I didn't know was emotional. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I didn't know.
That's just the worst.
And when I tell you, it was terrible. I called my best friend, like I couldn't breathe. She was like, wait, breathe. I was like, but this is my first time. I tried to breathe and I tried to go out and I couldn't. But if you saw me in Perkins Road, I wasn't about to put off like I would. I probably would have fell in your arms no matter who you were, okay? I was looking for anybody. Do I know anybody?
Right.
Because I was going to be honest about how I feel. And grief, it can be so big, but I wanted to live it.
Yeah.
And sometimes what we want to do is avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But avoiding it it's not leaving. It's not leaving. So I wanted to face it. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to be real about it. And I had to come to grips with, I don't have to prove to anybody.
That's right.
My reality.
That's right.
If you ask me, you will see. If you ask me, I'll tell you. If you see me, you will know it. But I don't have anything to prove.
Right.
I don't have anything to prove.
And because you're saying that, I remember running a group and I asked a grief group and I asked everyone, what do you want people to say to you? Some people don't know how to say things, so they avoid all of these things. And then some people assume like, oh, you're trying to be stronger. You don't have to be. What are some things that people can say where it feels safe for you and you're like, okay, I can tell you like today is just not a good day.
Right.
What can somebody say?
Really, just don't assume it's acts is my biggest thing.
I like that.
Because people are doing well with what they think is okay. And I'm not the type of person, even though it can be assumed that, I'm not the type of person that'll get mad at you because, oh my God, you said such. Grief is a strange thing. When you have somebody, like my daddy knew everybody, right? So people not gonna know what to say when they see you. I don't have the expectation that you're gonna have the right words and the right language, right? Sometimes it's gonna be silly.
It's gonna be jacked up.
Sometimes like people break down crying. You know, my sister be like, I was doing my client makeup and she started crying and like, I'm so sad about it. People gonna break down crying because he impacted so many people.
He did.
But what I needed, ask me how I am and accept my truth.
Yeah.
Accept my truth.
I love
and don't
that.
try to make it yours because don't put your fear on me. Don't put your sorrow on me.
Right.
Don't put your grief process on me.
That's right.
If I told you that I am okay today, I'm not lying. I am okay today. If I tell you that I don't know, I'm not lying. I don't know. But just because it doesn't look how yours look doesn't mean that it's not proper grief.
And watch this. It could be it could be at 12 noon that they say, hey, how are you? And you're like, today is a good day. It could be 2 hours later and they see it and say, now girl, you was
and I wasn't lying. I was good. It was something, the strangest thing happened at that moment because you do have grief triggers, right?
Yeah.
So it could be the strangest things. I know for a while, we were trying to avoid Dillard's because if you go in Dillard's, my dad knew everybody in the store, right? But you try to avoid it if you go in the men's Dillard because his sense was there, right? You can smell him. When you go in there, it's like, oh, I can smell him today. So you try to avoid the mall, right? Then you finally get to the place where, okay, I need to face it. And you make the decision and you go into the mall. And where would have been a sad moment is now a,
I smell my dad.
I smell my daddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I smell my dad. And so those are things, but you have to work through those tough spots to make them the okay spots, right?
Yeah.
And living through that, but just ask. Stop assuming how people are. It's okay for people to need their space or their process, but it's okay to even, one thing that was hard for me being the strong person is that the assumption was somebody else had showed up. Well, I didn't contact you because I figured a lot of people had showed up. So when you had so many people assuming somebody else showed up, the reality was nobody did.
Right.
You know, and very few did, but I can be so appreciative. Alicia Hardy Montgomery, for an entire year, she texts my sister and I in the group. The entire first year, she checked in every single week.
And how important, why was that so important?
I felt seen.
You felt seen.
I felt seen.
You felt like you weren't forgotten.
That I wasn't forgotten. She didn't ask anything. Sometimes she'll send a song, she'll sing a memo. Sometimes it'll be just, hey, I love y'all. Sometimes, but for an entire year. Right, it didn't fall out. It didn't, oh, she got busy, so she didn't do it this week. For an entire year, she did that. And that was so special to me because I didn't ask it.
Right.
We've always, somewhere down the way, we're cousins. I can't remember how, right?
That's all right. We all related. Right.
But we weren't like close talk every day.
That's right.
God put it on her.
Yeah.
She obeyed God despite what anybody happens to say. But in my situation, there were a lot of people just thought somebody else did it.
Yeah.
And then when you ask, and I'm honest to say, well, no.
Nobody's calling. Nobody's checking in.
They didn't check in like that. No, that's not how that worked. And no offense to them, because, I know how my life can be, and I may, check out or forget things. But just to have somebody to say, I'm just obeying God.
Every week.
Just obey him. Every week. And the time, or sometimes she may do twice a week. And she may not ask us a question. She may ask what we needed prayer for, or it was just the fact that I love y'all.
Yeah.
And that meant something every time. And she committed to doing that for an entire year. I have no idea how I can ever repay her for that, but it meant the world to me.
Yeah. And that is showing up.
Yeah.
Because now with technology, you don't have to call necessarily. You don't have to come by the house. You don't have to do you can text.
Yeah.
You can sing a gram. You can do all the things. Yeah. It's just showing up.
And until somebody tells you that they don't want you to show up, make the effort.
Make the effort.
Until they tell you they don't want it.
I love
because
that.
We'll think like based on, I'm selectively social, right? But that's just my natural personality. And if you learn me, I have the biggest heart ever.
Oh, yeah.
And I will I've literally gone home barefooted because somebody wanted my shoes and giving them to me.
Here, baby.
Here. You never had toys before. Here, these your size. That's my heart. But because my natural personality, I'm not the social butterfly of the crew. My sister's the social butterfly of the crew, right? So she's the social butterfly of the crew. Then you would just assume, well, you ain't want me to say, I did, but I'm just not. That's just not me to be that's not my personality. Yeah. I'm not the social. So just show up until I tell you not to.
Yeah.
And if I'm offended, I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
If it hurt me, I'm gonna tell you. If you're doing too much, I'm gonna say that. Hey, not today. You're doing too much. Wait. I ain't trying to cry today. I'm not ready for it. I even had one of my coworkers, one of my friends at work. She's a hugger. She's really big on hugging. And so she came up to me all excited. I said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I can't do that today.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? I said, don't feel bad. I just know if you hug me today,
it's over.
I'm not ready to be stable to stand, and I cannot. Just give me a minute. When we so I called her when I went to my office. I said, okay, I feel the breathing room. You could come into my office, and I felt okay because it's just my comfort zone. I don't like, that's too dramatic for me.
Okay.
If it works for other people, that works.
That's fine.
But for me, it's just so dramatic to just fall apart. Now I'm wailing in front of everybody. Now my knees and broken. I'm on the ground. The people that sent the ambulance because I done made a whole scene. I am not a make a scene person.
Right.
So I said, when I get to my office, I promise you can hug me in the space that I feel safe in. Just let me get there. But if you do it now, I'm not going to make it. And then I called her when I got to my office, and she came to my office. She gave me a hug, and we made it through. But I was honest. Hey, listen,
I love that.
Not today, not right now.
And the maturity of the other person to accept your truth, to accept your honesty.
Accept my honesty. But some people did some sweetest things. Like I made a post, because if you've been following me, I've been doing it my own way.
Yeah.
My heart speaks as poetry, so I've been doing poetry. I will make grief talks moments and be honest about it, because I'm a writer, so I'm going to write a poem or I'll write my words. So I have statuses where I give my truth. But someone saw my status the first year of my entire life. My dad sent Valentine's Day to school, so I never had to worry about a Valentine, because my daddy was always I don't care. My daddy give me something, right? So I said that, oh man, he's not going to be here to get my Valentine. My coworker's daughter saw my status, and she's made a personal bouquet for me at work on my first Valentine's Day.
Aww.
And she said, I wanted to give you something because I saw your status. My coworker's daughter sent me flowers to work. Those are the moments that I couldn't have asked somebody to do. Because people be like, well, how can I show up for you? Sometimes I don't know how to show up.
Just do something.
And I'm weird. Like, how I can show up for you? I'll be at the house. You come by the house. I'm gonna be at home. I'm sitting on the sofa. Because sometimes you don't know how to tell people, I don't know what I need right now. Just come be there. Just sit there. Just watch the movie. Do the random thing, But being honest and allowing people to tell you what they need, but also allowing people to tell you for themselves that they don't want it.
Yeah.
Don't just assume that they don't.
Yeah. I love that. And again, just showing up, do something.
Yeah.
When you love, you just do something. If that's, okay, I caught you in the mall, let's have an extended conversation, if that's what you want.
Right.
Just do something. Let's talk about the book.
Okay.
And so we know that you're a writer. I know how your brain works. And so I know, like, through the process, you were jotting down, you were putting things in your phone, because I know that that's how you work, right? When did you say, let me bring it all together and here it is?
Okay, so this book is God's book. I did not write this book.
Okay.
I did not write this book. I will consider myself to be a scribe with this book.
Really?
From the title, Good Grief, the title, I literally dreamed Good Grief, kept hearing it so loudly in my sleep, and I woke up and I wrote it down.
Wow.
Good Grief, the biggest oxymoron that changed my life.
Right.
God gave me that. The sunflowers on the title, I literally dreamed and saw the sunflower. I called my graphic designer, shout out to Jade. Jade that does my graphics for my book. All I simply told her, sent her a paragraph that was given to me, told her in some way, this is the title, some kind of way use a sunflower. She came up with the sunflower standing, but still but leaning, because in the grief you stand but lean.
Right.
A few months ago, a memory pops up. That was November of last year. I get a memory from being on my way to the memorial site, to the burial site. I had no idea, but I had an Instagram memory holding a sunflower. I don't remember at all
really
having that moment. If it wasn't for Facebook, Instagram having that as a memory, I didn't even recall that on my way to put him into the mausoleum at the funeral, I was given a sunflower. I didn't even recall having the sunflower. So I looked up the sunflower, and the sunflower is about having hope. And the sunflower, it bends, but it forever bends into the way of the light. And I said, oh my God. So that's what I tell you. God
this is God's book.
This is literally God's book.
Right.
This is literally God's book. From the title to the sunflower to the meaning of the sunflower. Every page of the book is God's book.
So I know you can't go into specifics, because we want people to purchase if somebody's grieving, or if you're grieving, yourself, or it might not be, again, a death. It could be a divorce. It could be so many other things.
Right.
We want you to get the book. But tell me a nugget from the book that really stands out for you.
Well, one thing that I like about the book is the book encompasses all of me. So you get the preacher me, you get the person me.
I love that.
You get the therapist me. You get the poet me. All of me is literally, this is the first book where you have all of me. So you got my transparency, you got my vulnerability, but you also got my biblical knowledge, and you got my therapist that's in there. All of that is in this book. And then one of my favorite parts of the book that God gave me is this journey, this way that you journal through it.
Okay.
And he literally gave me the tears method. Listen, that's probably going to be, this is my New York Times bestseller book right here, okay? So I have the tears method, but the poetry in there. But the greatest nugget is from the book. And shout out to Uncle Marvin. Marvin Sapp.
We love you, Uncle Marvin.
Marvin Sapp wrote the foreword to my book.
Really?
He wrote the foreword.
We love
Listen,
him.
this is God's book.
This is God's book.
So Bishop Marvin L. Sapp wrote the foreword to my book. And he highlighted this in his foreword. If just okay is all you have, hold on to it until you can get something more. That's my favorite part of it.
Now that'll preach.
That's my favorite part of the book.
That'll teach. Wow.
If just okay is all you have.
Hold on
to it until you could trade it in for something more.
Where's the musician? Because you know I'm going to go. Where's my A flat? I just want to know, where is it? Okay.
Yeah, if just okay is all you have.
Hold on
to it.
To the okay. We're going to leave that one alone. We have to leave that alone. Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is the theme of the book, but it helps you get through it. It gets you through my journey. It's honest details about when I got the call from Mom, and I walk you through it. The 100 steps that I know was the 100 steps to get from the opening door to the ICU room, to the from the opening door to the door to get into his room. I literally walked it one day because he was there at the ICU for 3 weeks. So one of my moments of going in, I walked it to know how many steps it was.
100 steps.
100 steps. And so I have a poem in there about those 100 steps and what it was like. And every day I would say, I would go to tell him goodbye because I was in school during this entire time, okay? So my routine was this. When I got the call that there was a cold blue and he was moving to the ICU, he stayed there for 3 weeks in the ICU, right? And during the time, I would wake up, call the ICU, see how his night was, go to work, leave from work, have my computer, sit in the ICU waiting area, do my homework, and I sat there until my mom was ready to go. And so every visiting hour, we were already there in place. Visiting hour would go, she would go see him, I'll do my final walk, and I say, all right, man, give me one more day. I'll see you tomorrow. That was one of the my favorite parts of the book is that tomorrow never came. The tomorrow I expected never came. But the tomorrow that I can forever resonate with is that I'll see him on the other side.
Yeah.
So my natural tomorrow didn't come. But as a spiritual person, I want to live so that I can get my tomorrow.
I can get that. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but that entire process is in the book. My honesty, my emotion. You're going to cry.
You're going to cry. Okay.
You're going to cry.
Okay.
Because I cried. You're going to cry.
Yeah.
But you're also going to feel so rejuvenated and so free to allow God to use even this tough space.
Yeah.
That's why it's called good grief. It's the craziest oxymoron to be in this position and then also be perfectly positioned. The craziest thing ever, right? I have peace that makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
It's not logical.
It is not logical.
Right.
And if you allow God to use the logical space and allow him to shape it how he needs, even grief has some good in it.
Yeah.
But you got to be open to allow him to use it.
Yeah.
And that's the message that I wanted to send to people. Grieve, but you can grieve well.
Yeah.
And you can grieve well in such a way that God still gets the glory, even in death.
Jesus, listen. Can we purchase it now?
Yes.
Well,
so you can do the pre-order.
Right.
You can go thegoodgriefbook.com and you can pre-order the book. And at the pre-orders are going to come with, I'm going to sign every one of them. And then I'm also have some special gifts that I'm going to give to everyone that pre-orders. And when you pre-order, you're going to get your copy before its actual release date.
Oh, nice.
The actual release date where you can get it at Amazon and everywhere is April the 24th.
Okay.
Right? So the pre-order people are going to get it before April the 24th. And then I'm going to have a whole situation signing and all of that. But you can go to thegoodgriefbook.com and you can get your pre-order today.
Love that. I love that. I have to ask you, what has been the biggest lesson your dad has ever taught you? If it's a word or phrase.
The biggest lesson that my dad has ever taught me, be afraid of nothing. My dad literally lived by faith. And even though he only had 57 years on this earth, I can guarantee you that there was no stone that he left unturned.
Wow.
If it was a store, he don't care, I'm going to start it. If it was a company, I mean, he's done things that people are probably still trying to figure out how to do.
Right.
I mean, we had alterations on wheels. We've had a real estate company. He's done a manager of this. He's seen the entire world, but he was never afraid of who he was.
Yeah.
He was never afraid of what he had because he knew he was always bigger than what other people perceive.
Yeah.
And for me, it taught me to live this fearlessness that it doesn't matter what man says. I'm going to walk into every room that God says I have.
Every room.
He was never afraid of anything.
Wow.
That man will walk into a space looking and acting like the biggest billionaire in the room, honey. Okay?
I love it.
I mean, he said with millionaires, he said with kings and queens, and you would not even know that he wasn't even a part of the tribe that he sat with. He taught me to be that fearless. So everything I approach it without fear. I don't care if I don't have the money. I don't care what other people may say. I don't care if I have to do it by myself, but I'm going to do it all. And as long as I have breath in my lungs, I'm leaving nothing unturned.
Nothing unturned.
I'm trying it all.
Yeah.
I'm giving it all I got. Because even if you will never say I didn't. You can say I failed,
right?
But you can never say I didn't try.
You're gonna live.
I'm gonna live.
You're gonna live.
I'm going to live.
Wow.
And live beyond the limitations that the world and man and even people try to set. And I'm gonna do it big. I'm gonna do it big.
Do it big.
Do it big. If you're gonna do it,
do it big.
Do it big.
I mean, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so, for the final question,
okay,
who are you now? How would you describe yourself now?
I am woman. I am woman. For so long, there has been a battle between the little girl, the person that wanted to be accepted by others, right? Living in a constant battle of not wanting to seem too big, not wanting to seem too, but now I'm woman. I'm woman standing in a space. I am woman birthing out a dream and a plan. I am no longer timid about what is in me. I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I carry. I'm going to stand 10 foot tall. I'm woman.
I love that.
Woman King is one of my favorites. Listen,
yes.
I am the woman king, baby. I'm the woman king. And I don't know if I ever would have got here this soon without grief.
Yeah.
Grief got me that. Yeah. But I am woman.
Yeah. It's almost like you feel like I got, you're getting through, because I think it's a process.
Right.
But it's almost like I got through this. I can get through anything. Jeez.
Anything.
Louise.
Once I made it through that first year, and I talk about that in the book, I can conquer it all. And it doesn't mean that I won't have the spaces and the times, but I am no longer afraid. That's what woman means to me. I can stand in all of my wisdom and all of my glory and all of my sass and all of my femininity. I can be all those things.
Wow.
Unashamed and unafraid.
Unashamed and unafraid. Okay, we want to take a moment for you to talk directly to our viewers. And what would you say to the person, the leader, male or female, who's currently going through the grief process? What would you say to them?
I'll never forget the words in a conversation I had with Dr. Arisha Hilliard. And she was one of those ones that helped me to walk through the process. And she said to give yourself the space and the grace.
Yes.
And those are words that I live by. Give yourself the space and the grace. Whatever space that you would give to another person to feel, to mourn, to grieve, to have sadness, to have joy, give yourself that. Give yourself the space. Create for you the space of safety. Create for you the space of safety. And whatever you would give to another person, it's okay for you to be open to receive it, but first, to be the first person that gives yourself that.
I love that.
Give yourself the space and the grace. And whatever you would give to others, it's okay for you to desire it for yourself. I'm in a season of reciprocity. This is the season I'm in. And so anything I require, I can reciprocate.
Yeah.
And so I make sure that I also give myself those same things that I'm willing to give to someone else.
I love that. And so we're hoping that through this, first, of course, we want you to grieve well. We want you to purchase the book to help you in your journey, because it is a journey.
It is a journey.
It is a journey.
Yes.
Don't allow anyone to rush you.
Yeah.
It is a journey.
It's a journey.
And especially if you're a leader or you know a leader, like this book clearly is not only for leaders, for everyone, but if you have a leader that's grieving, they need to get the book.
Yeah.
Because we need leaders to grieve well.
And I want to say this before we leave too. Grief is a journey, because at every point in your life, you're going to realize that person won't be there.
Yeah.
So it's not a destination where I could just rush through this and
I'm at the end
and
of
if I
it.
get to these 12 and I walk through these 5 stages and I'm at the end. No, grief is a journey. And grief can show up in the most inopportune times, at the most random seasons of life, whether it's 3 years, 20 years, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And be okay to walk through the journey.
That's right.
But the journey doesn't have to be full of consistent negativity in order for it to be true.
That's right.
In order for it to be true.
You don't have to look like the standard of grief.
Yeah.
You don't have to look like that. It can be your journey in the way that makes sense for you.
In the way that it makes sense for you.
But a healthy way.
But a healthy way.
And so we want you to get this book for many reasons, to kind of help you through your grief process, but then also to help others. I think that, if I'm not grieving now, I'm going to buy the book so that I'll know how to help other people through the journey of grief.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't.
We made it through. Yeah. We made it through.
Listen, y'all, when I sat down, look, I was going to say something about holding hands. Because when I sat down, I got teary and I was just like, okay, we're going to make it through.
Yeah,
we did.
We did.
We did.
We did. I saw you tear up a little bit. I saw you.
I feel like we are, God is with us.
Yeah.
I feel like God is with us. And the strength of your Father is like, ladies.
Yeah.
Tell the people what they need.
Yeah. That was one of my daddy's
Cry
saying.
After.
Get yourself together. We got a
That's
job to do.
Get
yourself together. We got a job.
Like, y'all gonna get through this because people need it.
People need
this.
Yeah.
We love you and we thank you for spending this time with us. This is the first of many that she's going to do. You're looking at, how can I say this? You're looking at someone that, I call her my niece, she calls me her auntie, but you're looking, now I'm about to tear up. Now I'm about to tear up. Now I'm about to act up. But you're looking at someone who you can admire because she lives behind the scenes what she lives in front of the scene. And if you are a young person, if you are a person in ministry or whatever, if you identify with her, connect with her, follow her, because she's the real deal. I lie to you not. This young lady is the real deal. She prays for real. She's not, doing ministry for any other reason but to make sure that souls are saved. She is completing the vision of God. And we are proud of you.
Thank you.
We are so incredibly proud of you. Love you so much.
Thank you. I love you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't you start.
Okay, I'm not going to get started.
Don't you start. Don't you start.
We did it.